Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Things just took an unexpected turn regarding the Toronto Blue Jays and their free agency pursuits, and we have substantial updates to break down concerning the best player available in free agency and Toronto's interest level, along with developments on other potential targets. There's significant information to cover right now because the Blue Jays, like most contending organizations, harbor genuine interest in Kyle Tucker, the premier player on the free agency market and also the most expensive acquisition available this offseason. There's been an unusual market developing for Tucker throughout this process, and right now, based on where everything stands, circumstances have been trending increasingly favorable for certain teams to ultimately land Tucker. This would be absolutely transformative for whichever organization secures his services, specifically regarding the fact that Tucker has been an exceptional player throughout his career. Last season represented a bit of a statistical downturn, which has complicated his market dynamics because he was dealing with injury issues, but he still posted a solid batting average and OPS that most teams would gladly accept from their outfielders. I'm not particularly concerned about the reduced home run totals this past season. He's consistently been capable of producing elite power numbers when healthy and positioned to succeed, but injuries have been part of the equation, and also the reality that hitting home runs in certain ballparks presents unique challenges depending on field dimensions and conditions. Ultimately, landing Tucker would be genuinely interesting for any contending organization. Incredible Blue Jays reporter Ben Nicholson-Smith did indicate that certain teams are now positioned as strong candidates to provide Kyle Tucker the long-term deal he's seeking. While various organizations have been positioned as favorites at different points, the landscape continues evolving based on which teams demonstrate the most aggressive pursuit and willingness to meet Tucker's contract demands. Tucker would fit seamlessly into most contending lineups given his track record of production, though it would create interesting roster configuration questions depending on existing outfield depth and organizational plans. Before we dive deeper into all the developments, let me acknowledge our sponsor who makes this content possible and provides valuable tools for following these free agency situations in real time. Now let's jump into the substantive news and analysis. Obviously, with Kyle Tucker and this entire situation, there's substantial complexity to consider. According to recent reporting from John Heyman, he provided perspective on what it would take for certain teams to ultimately land Kyle Tucker. Heyman suggested that some organizations don't present as attractive destinations compared to teams like established championship contenders, and those organizations would need to significantly exceed competing offers to convince Tucker their situation represents the optimal landing spot. Yet here's the important context, though. The fit can make more sense for certain teams than others, depending on roster construction and organizational needs. Some teams desperately need another impact bat and have clear positional openings where Tucker could contribute immediately. Tucker has been primarily a right fielder throughout his career, but he's demonstrated defensive versatility with Gold Glove caliber ability, so positional adjustments shouldn't be particularly concerning. When we evaluate Tucker objectively, he represents someone who genuinely fits certain organizational profiles better than others, even if those teams aren't universally viewed as the most appealing free agent destinations. Now, ultimately, some lineups would feature substantial left-handed hitting concentration, and that creates legitimate questions about platoon vulnerabilities and matchup management. When you examine certain roster constructions, you might have switch hitters who predominantly bat pure left-handed hitters at multiple positions, and prospects developing who also hit from the left side. Adding another left-handed bat to that mix would create the most lefty-heavy batting lineup on a regular basis among contending teams. I understand there are legitimate strategic concerns with that configuration. Opposing managers can exploit platoon advantages, particularly in crucial late-game situations when they can bring in left-handed specialists to neutralize multiple dangerous hitters consecutively. That's a valid consideration that can't be dismissed casually. But simultaneously, if the talent level is sufficiently high and the production is there consistently, does the handedness distribution matter as much as raw offensive output? If these hitters are generating runs efficiently regardless of pitcher handedness, that mitigates many of the theoretical concerns. Tucker specifically isn't someone where platoon splits create major vulnerabilities. He's Kyle Tucker, a proven elite hitter who's demonstrated ability to handle any pitcher regardless of handedness. He's not a complementary piece you need to shelter in favorable matchups. Some hitters do show meaningful platoon splits that teams need to account for strategically, and certain players excel specifically against opposite-handed pitching while struggling against same-side arms. Those realities make certain acquisitions more appealing, depending on existing roster construction and what specific role the player would fill. The Blue Jays and other organizations are both eager to add impact outfield production, and there are legitimate debates about which available player represents the optimal fit. For some teams, one player might better address lineup balance with his handedness and specific skill set matching organizational needs. But simultaneously, why would certain evaluation frameworks prioritize one player over another when the pure talent differential seems substantial? That doesn't necessarily compute from a talent acquisition standpoint. If organizations simply recognize the superior long-term value proposition and pursued accordingly, the market dynamics would resolve more clearly. But instead, we're seeing preferences that seem disconnected from objective talent evaluation, which creates opportunities for teams willing to be more aggressive. According to reporting from credible baseball analysts, certain players do fit specific organizational profiles exceptionally well, and those fits aren't just theoretical exercises, but represent genuine roster construction advantages. One potential target would be an excellent fit for teams needing outfield defense and a specific offensive profile. That player provides elite defensive value, could anchor one outfield position long-term while other players develop, and the configuration would be set for an extended competitive window with players at different stages of their careers and contract situations. That represents smart roster construction that balances immediate competitiveness with sustained success, rather than purely short-term thinking. There are other free agents available that organizations should absolutely explore as well, beyond just the premium outfielders dominating headlines. Teams shouldn't limit their focus exclusively to the most prominent names when there are quality players available at multiple positions who could meaningfully improve rosters. Obviously, some positional groups are already addressed adequately through existing players or previous acquisitions, so additional investment there makes less strategic sense. Remaining free agents at certain positions don't align well with organizational needs unless teams decided to make dramatic roster reconfigurations. However, teams do still have financial flexibility to invest in pitching upgrades, and they should absolutely explore trade market opportunities if they want to add specific profiles that aren't readily available in free agency. If organizations want to add right-handed offensive production at this point, they would likely need to target specific positions just based on roster construction and where legitimate openings exist for everyday playing time. With that strategic framework, teams should pursue designated hitter types who provide right-handed power and complement existing lineup construction. Certain players come to mind as potential fits who remain available and haven't generated extensive attention thus far in free agency. These players would represent solid signings at reasonable market values given age and recent performance trajectories. Some players are on the older side, which limits long-term contract appeal, but if you're seeking immediate production rather than extended investment, age becomes less concerning. Production matters more than age when you're competing in a championship window and need players who can contribute immediately. Ultimately, though, I remain convinced that if you can acquire the premium talent, you pursue that aggressively rather than settling for complementary pieces. I don't understand why organizations aren't being more aggressive pursuing the elite players available. I think talent evaluation sometimes underrates certain players relative to their actual impact and production capacity. Tucker specifically is an absolutely exceptional talent, and whichever organization secures him will be extremely fortunate to add that caliber of player. The Blue Jays should pursue premium talent aggressively for exactly that reason. Are they actually going to go harder after top targets than current reporting suggests? What do you think the likelihood is that they exceed expectations and land impact players by offering superior contract terms, even if they need to pay premium rates? Let me know your perspective, because I'm genuinely interested in how others are evaluating these situations and whether there's confidence Toronto will be sufficiently aggressive, or whether concern exists they'll be outbid by more aggressive organizations. Are there other moves you want to see them pursue in free agency beyond the obvious headline acquisitions? Obviously, there probably are additional roster needs, but what specifically would address remaining weaknesses most effectively? Thank you for engaging with this content, and make sure you stay connected, because these situations continue developing rapidly, and we'll keep breaking down every significant update as free agency progresses toward spring training.